The alarm rings. Your hand reaches out, finding the snooze button with practiced precision. Just 5 more minutes. You tell yourself. Those 5 minutes become 10, then 20, then an hour. Another morning slips away, forever lost to the comfortable embrace of your warm bed. And with it, a piece of your potential fades. How many mornings like this add up to a life of regret? You see, while you're hitting that snooze button, someone else isn't. Someone else is rising, stretching their limbs against the resistance of sleep, and stepping into the arena of life, ready to claim the day as their own. The difference between them and you isn't talent. It isn't luck. It isn't privilege or circumstance. The difference is a decision made in that critical moment between consciousness and comfort. That decision, my friends, shapes not just your morning, but your entire existence. The alternative begins with understanding the true nature of morning laziness. When you feel that overwhelming desire to stay in bed, what's really happening in your body and mind? Research shows that this feeling isn't actually physical fatigue. Most of the time, it's psychological resistance. Your brain's attempt to avoid the discomfort of transition and the uncertainty of the day ahead. Your brain, in its primitive wisdom, equates the known comfort of your bed with safety and the unknown challenges of the day with potential danger. This is not a character flaw. This is your brain doing exactly what it evolved to do: conserve energy and avoid perceived threats. The problem isn't with your brain's programming. It's with the modern context in which that programming operates. In our ancestors' world, conserving energy made perfect sense. Food could be scarce and physical threats were real and immediate. But in our world of abundance and relative safety, this same instinct leads us away from growth and toward stagnation. So the morning ritual I'm about to share with you isn't about fighting against your nature. It's about working with your nature in a new way, respecting its wisdom while redirecting its focus. Here it is in its beautiful simplicity. When your alarm goes off, don't make staying in bed or getting up a matter of debate. Don't engage with the question at all. Instead, immediately count 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and physically move your body. Swing your feet to the floor. Stand up. Take one step, then another. This isn't just a cute trick. This is neuroscience in action. By counting down, you're interrupting the habitual thought patterns that lead to the snooze button. You're creating a pattern interrupt that bypasses your brain's resistance. And by physically moving, you're sending powerful signals throughout your nervous system that it's time to engage with the world. But this is just the beginning. Getting out of bed is the first victory of the day. But what you do in the next 15 minutes will determine whether that victory leads to lasting change or becomes just another false start. Once you're on your feet, you must immediately engage in what I call a power priming sequence. This isn't complicated, but it must be done with intention and presence. It consists of 3 simple components. First, hydration. Your body has been without water for the entire night. Before you reach for coffee or breakfast, drink a full glass of water. This simple act jumpstarts your metabolism, flushes toxins from your system, and provides the hydration your brain needs for optimal function. Second, movement. I'm not talking about a full workout, though that's excellent if you're inclined. I'm talking about 5 minutes of deliberate physical activity. This could be as simple as stretching, a set of push-ups, or a brief walk around your home. The goal isn't calorie burning. It's to get your blood flowing and oxygen circulating to your brain and muscles. Third, and perhaps most critically, intention setting. Take 3 minutes to write down your primary goal for the day. Not a to-do list of 20 items, just the one thing that, if accomplished today, would move your life forward in a meaningful way. This focuses your mind and commits you to conscious living rather than reactive existence. This entire sequence takes less than 15 minutes, yet it completely reframes your relationship with the day ahead. Instead of starting from a place of resistance and avoidance, you're starting from a place of proactive engagement. But here's where most people go wrong. They try this for a day or two, feel good about it, And then when the initial novelty wears off, they abandon it because it doesn't feel effective anymore. This is the trap of outcome-based thinking. We expect immediate, dramatic results from our actions. And when those results aren't immediately apparent, we conclude that the action itself is flawed. True transformation doesn't work this way. True transformation happens through the compound effect of small, consistent actions taken over time. Each morning that you follow this ritual, you're not just affecting that single day. You're rewiring neural pathways, strengthening new habits, and gradually shifting your identity from someone who surrenders to laziness to someone who embraces discipline. Let me share something with you that changed my entire perspective on morning routines. For years, I struggled with consistency. I'd get excited about a new morning practice, try it enthusiastically for a week or two, then gradually slide back into old patterns. I'd beat myself up about it, question my commitment and willpower, and the cycle would continue. Then I discovered a profound truth. The problem wasn't my willpower. The problem was that I was trying to make too many changes at once, and I was linking my identity to perfect execution rather than consistent effort. So I simplified. I committed to just this basic morning sequence. No hitting snooze, water, movement, intention setting. And I made a crucial mental shift. Instead of saying, I'm going to try this new morning routine, I began telling myself, I am the kind of person who honors their morning commitment to themselves. Do you see the difference? One statement focuses on the action. The other focuses on identity. And identity is the most powerful driver of behavior. When you shift from trying to do to being the kind of person who does, everything changes. The resistance diminishes because you're no longer fighting against yourself. You're simply acting in alignment with who you are. Of course, you'll still have mornings where the bed feels impossibly comfortable and the thought of getting up seems like the hardest thing in the world. That's human. But when you've anchored this practice to your identity, you get up anyway. Not because you feel like it, but because that's who you are. And here's the beautiful paradox. The days you least feel like following through on your morning commitment are precisely the days when doing so will yield the greatest return on investment. These are the character building moments that separate the extraordinary from the ordinary. Someone once asked me, what's the secret to success? Expecting some complex, nuanced answer. But the truth is surprisingly simple. Success in any domain comes down to doing what you said you would do consistently, especially when you don't feel like it. That's it. That's the whole game. Now, you might be thinking, this all sounds good in theory, but my situation is different. You don't understand the specific challenges I face. And you're right. I don't know your exact circumstances. I don't know if you're a single parent juggling multiple jobs, a student overwhelmed with coursework, or an executive facing immense pressure. I don't know if you struggle with chronic health issues, financial stress, or emotional trauma. But what I do know is this. Whatever your circumstances, however legitimate your challenges, the fundamental principles of human behavior and habit formation remain constant. Your specific situation may require adaptation of these principles, but it doesn't negate them. If your circumstances mean you can only dedicate 5 minutes instead of 15 to your morning ritual, then do 5 minutes with full presence. If physical limitations prevent certain movements, find alternatives that work for your body. If writing is difficult, speak your intentions aloud. The form can flex, but the essence remains. Break the cycle of the snooze button. Hydrate your body. Move in whatever way you can. Set your intention. But there's a deeper dimension to this practice that we must address, one that goes beyond mechanics and into meaning. Many people struggle with morning laziness not because they lack discipline, but because they lack purpose. When you don't have a compelling reason to get out of bed, something that ignites your spirit and calls you forward, then the comfort of sleep will always win. This is why the intention-setting component of the morning ritual is so crucial. It's not just about productivity. It's about connecting to purpose, even in small ways. When you identify the one thing that would make today meaningful, you're really asking yourself, what matters to me? What contribution can I make today? How can I move forward in a way that aligns with my deepest values? These are not just practical questions. These are existential questions that, when engaged with regularly, infuse ordinary days with extraordinary meaning. So let me ask you, out of bed in the morning, not what should get you out of bed, not what gets others out of bed, but what truly moves you. If you're struggling to answer that question, don't worry. Sometimes we lose touch with our deeper motivations. Sometimes we need to rediscover them or create them anew. The daily practice of intention setting can actually help you clarify this over time. But here's what I know for certain. There is something in this world that you care about deeply. There is some contribution only you can make. There is some problem only you can solve in your unique way. And connecting to that, even in the smallest daily actions, is the ultimate antidote to laziness. Because when you're connected to purpose, you don't need to fight laziness. Laziness simply becomes irrelevant in the face of something that matters more. This brings us to an important distinction. Discipline is not about forcing yourself to do things you hate. True discipline is about remembering what you want most over what you want now. The bed is what you want now. But a life of purpose, contribution, growth, and achievement, that's what you want most. And every morning, you get to choose between them. Now, let's go deeper into understanding why this morning ritual works at a fundamental level and how to overcome the most common obstacles you'll face in implementing it. Have you ever noticed how some days seem to spiral downward from the very start? You oversleep, rush through your morning, forget something important, get stuck in traffic, arrive late to work or school, and the whole day feels like you're trying to catch up with yourself. One small decision, hitting the snooze button, initiated a cascade of events that colored your entire day. This phenomenon is what I call the first domino principle. The first action you take each day is like the first domino in a long, complex arrangement. Knock it over in the right direction, and everything that follows becomes easier. More aligned, more purposeful. Knock it over in the wrong direction, or fail to knock it over at all, and you'll find yourself working against momentum rather than with it. This is why the decision not to hit snooze, followed by the simple ritual I've shared with you, is so much more significant than it might initially appear. It's not just about those 15 minutes. It's about setting in motion a positive chain reaction that influences every subsequent decision and action. But let's be honest about something. Knowing what to do is rarely the problem. We live in an age of unlimited information. With a few keystrokes, you can access more wisdom about morning routines, productivity, and habit formation than you could consume in a lifetime. The problem isn't knowledge. The problem is implementation. The problem is that gap between knowing and doing. So let's talk about how to bridge that gap. Let's talk about what happens when real life meets good intentions. Because if this morning ritual is going to truly transform your life, it needs to withstand the test of everyday challenges. Challenge number one, but I'm not a morning person. I hear this all the time, stated as if it were an immutable fact of nature, like blood type or height. I'm just not a morning person, they say, with an air of resignation that suggests this trait is coded into their DNA. But here's what research actually shows us. While there are indeed natural variations in chronotype, your body's preferred time for sleep and wakefulness, these preferences are far more malleable than most people realize. More importantly, even true night owls can train themselves to function effectively in the morning through consistent practice. The key word there is consistent. You can't expect to change a lifetime of sleep patterns in a day or even a week. Your body's circadian rhythm requires time to adjust. This is why the commitment to this morning ritual must be seen as a long-term investment, not a quick fix. If you're currently staying up until 2 in the morning and struggling to wake up before 10, don't try to suddenly shift to a 5 a.m. wake-up call. That's setting yourself up for failure. Instead, gradually adjust your sleep schedule by 15-30 minutes earlier every few days. Match this with an equally important commitment to going to bed earlier. Quality sleep is not the enemy of productivity. It's a prerequisite. The goal isn't to sleep less. It's to sleep well and wake with purpose. Challenge number 2. But some days I really do need more sleep. This is valid. Sleep is essential, and there will be days when your body legitimately needs more rest. The key is developing the discernment to know when you're truly in need of additional sleep versus when you're just surrendering to the comfort trap. Here's a simple way to develop this discernment. When the alarm goes off and you feel the urge to hit snooze, ask yourself this question: is my body genuinely exhausted, or is my mind simply resistant to the discomfort of transition? Physical exhaustion feels different from psychological resistance. One is a bodily need. The other is a mental habit. Learning to distinguish between them is crucial. If you determine that you genuinely need more sleep, then make a conscious, intentional decision to rest for a specific amount of additional time. Don't just hit snooze repeatedly in a semi-conscious state. Set a new alarm. Say to yourself, I am choosing to sleep for 30 more minutes because my body needs it, and then up when that alarm sounds. The difference may seem subtle, but it's profound. One approach puts you in control. The other surrenders control to momentary impulses. Challenge number 3. But my day is already overscheduled. I can't add one more thing. I understand. Many of us live lives filled to the brim with responsibilities and commitments. The thought of adding even 15 minutes of morning ritual can seem impossible. But this perspective misses a crucial point. The morning ritual isn't something extra you're adding to your day. It's an investment that makes everything else in your day more effective and meaningful. Think of it like sharpening a saw. If you need to cut down 20 trees, taking 5 minutes to sharpen your saw isn't one more thing to do. It's the very thing that makes the primary task possible and efficient. Still, I recognize that practical time constraints are real. So let me offer this. Start with just 5 minutes. Not 15, not 10, just 5. Anyone can find 5 minutes, even on the busiest morning. If you need to set your alarm just 5 minutes earlier, do that. In those 5 minutes, perform a condensed version of the ritual. Drink water. Move your body, even if it's just for 60 seconds. Set your intention for the day, even if it's just writing one sentence. Remember, the power of this practice comes not from its duration, but from its consistency and presence. 5 minutes of fully engaged ritual is infinitely more valuable than 15 minutes of distracted, half-hearted effort. And here's what typically happens. Once you experience the benefits of those 5 minutes, you naturally begin to find ways to extend the practice. You go to bed a little earlier. You streamline your morning routine. You eliminate time-wasting habits like immediately checking social media. And gradually, those 5 minutes become 10, then 15, then perhaps even 30 or more. But it all starts with a commitment to 5 minutes. Can you give yourself that gift? Challenge number 4. I've tried morning routines before and they never stick. Past failures can be heavy baggage. Each time we try to implement a positive change and don't follow through, we're not just failing at that specific attempt. We're reinforcing a story about ourselves, a story that says, I'm the kind of person who doesn't stick with things. Over time, this story becomes so familiar that we stop questioning it. We accept it as truth, rather than recognizing it as a narrative we've constructed based on limited evidence. The first step to overcoming this challenge is to examine that narrative critically. Have you really tried and failed at every habit you've ever attempted? Or have there been things in your life, perhaps related to work, relationships, or personal interests, where you've shown remarkable consistency? Most people, when they look closely, discover that they're actually quite disciplined in certain areas of life. The key is to understand what makes those areas different, what motivates that consistency, and then apply those same principles to your morning ritual. The second step is to recognize that past attempts at morning routines may have failed not because of some inherent flaw in you, but because of flaws in your approach. Perhaps you tried to change too much at once. Perhaps you didn't have clear, compelling reasons for the changes. Perhaps you didn't build in systems of accountability or ways to track your progress. This time will be different because your approach is different. You're starting smaller. You're connecting the practice to deeper meaning. You're understanding the psychological dynamics at play. And most importantly, you're shifting your focus from the action itself to the identity you're building through consistent action. Challenge number 5. But some mornings, motivation is simply nowhere to be found. Yes, this will happen. You will have mornings, perhaps many of them, where the last thing you feel like doing is getting out of bed, drinking water, moving your body, and setting intentions. You'll have mornings where even the thought of your morning ritual feels exhausting. These mornings are not failures of the system. These mornings are precisely why the system exists. Remember what we established earlier. Motivation doesn't precede action. It follows it. Waiting to feel motivated before acting is like waiting to feel full before eating. It fundamentally misunderstands the relationship between feeling and action. On the mornings when motivation is absent, rely on your commitment instead. This is why we established the countdown method 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 as a way to bypass the need for motivation. You don't need to feel like getting up. You just need to count down and move your body. Just think of it this way. The version of you that set the alarm last night made a promise to the version of you that wakes up this morning. Will you honor that promise even when it's difficult, especially when it's difficult? This is the essence of integrity. Doing what you said you would do, regardless of how you feel in the moment. And integrity with yourself is the foundation upon which all other success is built. Because here's a truth that may be uncomfortable to hear, but is essential to embrace. No one is coming to save you from mediocrity. No one is going to appear with perfect conditions and overwhelming motivation to propel you toward your best life. If change is going to happen, it must come from within. It must come from those small daily decisions that no one sees and few would consider significant. Decisions like getting out of bed when the alarm first sounds, even when every fiber of your being resists. Now let's shift our focus to something equally important. The evening routine that supports. You see, the battle against morning laziness isn't actually won in the morning. It's won the night before. The decisions you make in the evening hours directly impact your ability to rise with purpose and energy. First and foremost is sleep quality. The research is unequivocal. The quality of your sleep affects everything from your willpower and decision-making abilities to your emotional regulation and physical energy. Yet many of us sabotage our sleep in ways we don't even recognize. We expose ourselves to blue light from screens right up until bedtime, disrupting our body's production of melatonin, the hormone that signals it's time to sleep. We consume caffeine or alcohol in the evening, both of which interfere with deep, restorative sleep cycles. We bring work-related stress or interpersonal conflicts to bed with us, keeping our nervous systems in a state of alertness when they should be winding down. If you're serious about conquering morning laziness, you must be equally serious about evening preparation. This means establishing a wind-down routine that signals to your body and mind that it's time to transition from the day's activities to restorative rest. Ideally, this routine would include disconnecting from screens at least an hour before bed. If this seems impossible, start with just 30 minutes or use blue light blocking glasses if you must look at screens. Engaging in calming activities that help transition your nervous system from sympathetic fight or flight to parasympathetic Ryan digestion. This could be reading, gentle stretching, meditation, or simply sitting quietly and reflecting on the day. Preparing for the morning by setting out what you'll need. Workout clothes, journal, water bottle, so that your morning ritual encounters minimal friction. Reviewing your calendar for the next day and identifying your most important task or priority. This allows your subconscious mind to work on solutions while you sleep and prevents the morning feeling of overwhelm. Setting your alarm with intention, not as the absolute latest time you can wake up and still make it to work, but as the time that allows you to engage fully with your morning ritual. These evening practices might seem tangential to the issue of morning laziness, but they're actually foundational. They create the conditions that make your morning choice possible and sustainable. Remember, willpower is a finite resource that depletes throughout the day. By evening, your reserves are at their lowest. This is why it's crucial to use environmental design and habit stacking rather than relying on willpower alone. Environmental design means structuring your physical space to support your intentions. Keep your alarm across the room so you have to physically get out of bed to turn it off. Have your water and workout clothes ready. Make the path of least resistance align with your goals rather than work against them. Habit stacking means attaching new habits to existing ones, creating a natural flow from one positive behavior to the next. If you already brush your teeth every night, an established habit, stack your evening reflection or next day planning immediately after this habitual action. The established habit becomes the trigger for the new one, making implementation much more seamless. Now let's address something that many productivity experts overlook, but that I believe is essential for sustainable change: forgiveness and flexibility. There will be days when, despite your best intentions and preparations, you fall short. You hit snooze. You rush through your morning without completing your ritual. You give in to the pull of immediate comfort over long-term growth. When this happens, not if, but when, how you respond makes all the difference. Many people use these inevitable lapses as evidence that their efforts are futile. See? They tell themselves, I knew I couldn't do this. I'm just not disciplined enough. And with that narrative firmly in place, they abandon their practice entirely, returning to old patterns until the next burst of inspiration or frustration propels them to try again, thus perpetuating the cycle of start-stop, restart that characterizes most people's relationship with positive habits. A more effective approach is what I call compassionate consistency. This means holding the intention firmly while allowing for human imperfection in the execution. When you miss a morning, don't waste energy on self-criticism. Simply note what happened. Identify any triggers or circumstances that contributed to the lapse. Adjust your approach if necessary, and recommit to tomorrow's practice with the same enthusiasm you had on day one. The goal isn't perfect adherence. The goal is a positive trend line over time. If you're hitting your morning ritual 5 days out of 7, that's not failure. That's a life-changing success compared to 0 days out of 7. And often, what seems like failure is actually valuable feedback. Perhaps your alarm isn't loud enough. Perhaps you need more accountability. Perhaps there's an emotional or psychological barrier you haven't fully addressed. Each failure is an opportunity to refine your approach and deepen your understanding of yourself. This brings us to an essential point about sustainable change. The path is never linear. Progress doesn't look like a straight diagonal line moving ever upward. It looks more like a stock market chart. General upward trend over time, but with plenty of dips, plateaus, and occasional sharp drops along the way. The people who succeed in the long run aren't those who never experience setbacks. They're the ones who expect setbacks as part of the process and have strategies for getting back on track quickly when they occur. So build resilience into your plan from the start. Ask yourself, what will I do when, not if I miss a morning, how will I respond? What will bring me back to my practice? Having this contingency plan in place doesn't make failure more likely. It makes recovery more immediate, which is ultimately what determines your success. Let's talk now about the deeper transformations that begin to occur as this morning ritual becomes integrated into the fabric of your life. Think about something in your life that's so deeply integrated into your identity that you don't even question doing it. Perhaps it's brushing your teeth or showing up for work or caring for a loved one. You don't debate whether to do these things. You don't require motivation or awards. You simply do them because they're expressions of who you are. That's the goal with your morning ritual. Not that it becomes another should in your life, but that it becomes a natural expression of your identity as someone who values their time, energy, and potential enough to protect the first moments of each day. This identity solidifies, something remarkable happens. The effort required to maintain the practice diminishes even as the benefits multiply. What once demanded all your willpower becomes second nature. What once felt like sacrifice begins to feel like freedom. And then, almost imperceptibly, the ripple effects begin to spread into other areas of your life. You find yourself making better nutritional choices because they align with your new self-image. You become more discerning about how you spend your time and energy. You set clearer boundaries. You pursue goals that once seemed beyond your reach. All from a simple morning ritual. Yes, because it's never been just about the ritual itself. It's about the bridge it builds between intention and action, between who you aspire to be and who you are in the daily moments of your life. This is the transformative power of consistency in seemingly small things. This is how ordinary mornings become the foundation of an extraordinary life. But let me be clear about something. This path is not about pursuing some idealized, perfect version of productivity or success as defined by others. It's about creating space at the beginning of each day to connect with yourself and your deepest values before the world rushes in with its demands and distraction. For some, this morning space will be used to advance career goals or business ventures. For others, it will be about creative expression, spiritual practice, or physical well-being. The content of your morning ritual may evolve over time as your needs and priorities shift. What matters is not what specifically fills that space, but that you consistently claim it as your own, because in a world that constantly competes for your attention and energy, the act of reserving the first moments of the day for yourself is both a practical strategy for effectiveness and a profound act of self-respect. So as we move forward, I want to challenge you to make a decision, not just an intellectual agreement with the concepts I've shared, but a heart-level commitment to yourself and the life you know is possible. Will you continue to surrender your mornings to the comfort of your bed, knowing that with each snooze button press, you're choosing immediate ease over lasting fulfillment? Or will you claim those first moments as sacred territory, using them to set in motion a chain of events that day by day brings you closer to the person you're capable of becoming? The choice, as always, is yours. But know this, that choice is never just about this morning or tomorrow morning. It's about who you become through the accumulation of those choices over days, months, and years. Choose wisely, my friends. Choose wisely.